Hey friends, welcome to Chin Up and Rise. I'm Chini, your host, and today we are joined with one of the most amazing women I've met so far, Thea Raman. She is currently the head of legal of APAC, Middle East and Africa at one of the world's largest geotechnical specialist contractors and a proud mother of one. Thea was also one of the few females to make partner in the International Arbitration Construction and Projects practice in Raja & Tan, Singapore, the largest full-service law firm in Singapore with over 300 lawyers. And Raja & Tan was also recognized as the best Asian law firm by the International Legal Alliance Summit, where she spent almost 10 years practicing dispute resolution. Being part of the minority in her career, the journey that Thea went on has not been an easy one. And today she will be sharing with us the importance of giving ourselves time to accept and acknowledge our emotions as a way of self-improvement and self-care. Without further ado, let us welcome Thea onto the set.
Thanks, Ginny. Hi, guys.
Hi, Thea.
Hi.
Okay, so first question.
Yeah.
Have you always wanted to be a lawyer?
I can't say that it was an aspiration growing up. Like, I don't think I really wanted to be a lawyer. I kind of just sort of fell into it by accident, I would say. When I graduated from JC, junior college in Singapore, I really wanted to go overseas and study. I wanted to do a liberal arts degree or something. But my parents were like, you can't go unless you get a scholarship, right? Because it was really expensive to go. And lo and behold, I did not get a single scholarship. Despite a lot of my friends landing multiple scholarships left, right, and center. And so the door was just automatically closed for me. I didn't have a choice. And at the very last minute, I sort of scrambled to look for a place in a local university. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll just do law then. It sounded like a good idea. It's one of those things that it's kind of a no-brainer degree if you can get in, right? It's a good degree to have.
Of course.
So I just got into it, right? And then it turns out I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed my 4 years at NUS. I liked studying law. It came quite naturally to me. I guess you don't really know your strengths until,
You're in it.
You're in it, yeah. And at 18, you don't really know yourself well enough, So I think God had a way of redirecting my path. So,
at 18, I knew that I didn't like law.
I guess that much I didn't know yet. So I didn't have an aversion to it. So, yeah.
I think it takes a special group of people to really like reading words of contracts. And for myself, usually when I read contracts and all this, right, that's my lullaby. I'll fall asleep. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so actually it's quite amazing and it's quite amusing to me that to you it just comes so naturally, right?
Yeah, I will give it that it is quite boring, honestly, if you don't know what to look out for. But when you know what to look out for and when you know the practical consequences that certain clauses and terms can have, then it takes on significance to you when you read it, right?
Especially when you fight a case, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and it is amazing that you have been with a company for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
That was my first job, yeah.
Yeah, and back then, that was in
2011 when I first started, with Raja and Tan. Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2011, I understand that the lawyer scene was mostly guys. Is it?
Yeah, yes, I would say so. Actually, when you first start off, everyone starts off on equal. So there will be a lot of ladies as well. So when you start off in your career, but naturally as you progress, and as you grow, and you grow in seniority and your life stage changes, so people get married, they start having kids. Somehow or the other, inevitably, the women fall off.
Right.
So you will see that at the junior levels, and I think this might still be true today, you have a lot of ladies still, right? Because everyone enters the workforce at the same time, everyone gets a job and starts. But as you progress and as the years get on, then you'll find that there are fewer and fewer females in the senior ranks.
Right.
And I think, I mean, it does take a certain kind of person, a woman, to be able to last that long, especially if you're trying to build a family
Correct.
and have kids at the same time. Yeah. So because of that, it does end up being a more male dominated industry, just because the men are able to stay on for longer than the women, and somehow the women just decide that they've got other priorities along the way.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, how was it like being one of the few females to actually
Right.
last so long, and what does it actually take for one to actually get to where you were?
Right. So I think in terms of what it takes, I don't think there's a difference between men and women. You know, it takes the same amount of hard work. It takes the same amount of resilience, same amount of long nights and late hours. You know, it's pretty much the same. But I think the difference, you start to see a divergence when the women start to get married, like I said, and start to want to plan for a family.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes a bit difficult. I remember being married. I think I started in 2011. I got married in about 2015.
Okay.
And then we didn't really try to start having kids until about 3+ years later. And then I actually got pregnant in 2018, and I ended up miscarrying that pregnancy. But for the 10 weeks or so that I was pregnant, I remember thinking to myself, wow, you know, if I do go away on maternity leave, what's going to happen to all my clients? You know, maternity leave is like 4 months.
Yes, correct.
So in the life cycle of a case, that can be quite a long time.
Yes.
And it can be a long time to hand over your clients to someone else. And I wasn't sure that if when I came back, like, would my clients still want to come back with me, or would they prefer a more senior lawyer? Because I was very young at that time. I was, I think, 30, maybe 31 or something. And I just made partner. So I was a very young and fresh partner. And I guess from the client's perspective, if you had a choice, you prefer to go with someone more senior, maybe more experienced, right? So I felt like all these challenges were, it just came with the territory of being a woman, unfortunately. And if you wanted to take that time out, you know, you just have to work doubly extra hard to come back. And like, if you contrast that to a man, so for example, my husband, who's also in practice, I mean, it's not, in a sense, their career is not disrupted in any way, right? Like, they just, you know, they take 2 weeks off or whatever to support you after you have the baby, and then it's back to work, it's back to the office, it's back to business as usual.
Yeah, I mean, at least they have a choice whether they want to take a longer paternal leave or not.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I mean, they have that choice, exactly. Whereas I think as the one who's carrying the child and going through delivery and all of that, you know, and being the primary caregiver in those early months, it's almost,
I mean, it takes a toll on the body as well.
It does,
because it really goes through a lot of
change. Yeah.
So other than working doubly hard, right, what about some things that you felt you did different for you to actually stay?
I think, okay, interesting. I think it's more perspective than anything that I did in particular. I mean, I have to credit also my firm and the partners that I was working with, because I think they were always very encouraging and they gave me a lot of opportunities. So that's one. But the other thing is, I mean, I think it's taking a long view of things. Like, I think a lot of young lawyers, or maybe, you know, people who are young in their profession, they take a bad year as a be all and end all. Like, oh, this is a bad year, or maybe 2 bad years. And you have to understand that in the cycle of your career or your profession, it ebbs and flows. You're never going to have 5 good years at a go. But similarly, you shouldn't have 5 bad years. I mean, if you do have 5 bad years, then maybe it's really time to leave, or something is wrong, right? But it's your mindset, I guess, the perspective of like, it's the long game, right? So if you have 1 or 2 bad years, like write it out, you know, maybe the 3rd year will be better. Yeah, maybe you'll unlock something that wasn't there in the first 2 years, and that will give you a certain edge or improve your competence or whatever. And I just feel like I mean, I kind of took that view, and maybe that's sort of what just kept me going like year after year. Even though it wasn't easy, I definitely, cried a lot of nights, especially in the early year.
Yeah. So how do you actually handle all this stress?
The stress.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I mean, number one, having a kid is really stressful enough.
right.
And the second thing is that you're always under this immense pressure to perform.
Right.
Especially when you are one of the few female partners, right? At
Right.
that point of time. So it sounds to me that it is a very stressful situation, especially if it's a bad year.
Right.
How do you actually cope with all these things?
Okay, I have to clarify though, I didn't have a kid while I was in Raja and Tan. So I was...
Okay, so it was after.
So it was only after, and my current job is not as pressurizing
Okay.
as being in private practice. So
Yeah.
the stress levels are not that high. But I mean, of course, while you're in private practice, there's a lot of pressure from all over from every direction, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're expected to perform for your clients. You also need to fulfill your billable hours. You're responsible for associates that are under you to feed their hours as well, and lots of other things. I think the way that I approached it was probably just to take it like a day at a time, and not to let any one thing overwhelm you, you know. I mean, like, and then I think I heard this somewhere recently. Someone said something about not letting the failures get to your heart and the successes get to your head. So it's sort of just trying to keep an even keel throughout. And to remind yourself that at the end of the day, you know, it really it's just work, right? You're so much more than that. You're more than just this professional that you are at work, you know. You're also a wife, you could be a mother, you're a sister, you're a daughter, your friend, you're many more things than that. And I think that perspective is important to maintain as well.
Okay. So I mean, back when you were at Raja and Tan, right, you mentioned that you actually had a miscarriage. So how do you actually handle your emotions after post-miscarriage? I'm sorry to hear that.
No, that's all right. I had two when I was at Raja and Tan. So one in 2018 and another one at the start of 2020. And I think with the first one, I took it very badly. I mean, on the surface, it seemed like everything was like okay, but I think I was just suppressing my emotions. I actually really had no idea how to react. Like I had no clue how to handle it, like how to deal with it, you know. I think it was just so overwhelming that I had no category in my brain for this event, you know. And later on when I read up about like trauma and stuff, I realized that trauma is not actually like the event itself that happens. It's actually how a person processes it and their window of tolerance for that event. So it could be nothing to someone, right? Like, for example, maybe you got shouted at by a stranger on the street. And for me, it would maybe be nothing.
Yeah.
But for someone else who has a very small window of tolerance for this sort of thing, it would be traumatic. And in fact, for someone who's never ever been shouted at in their life, they have no
mental capacity for it?
No mental capacity and no framework actually. There's nothing in the brain to hang this, to file this event away in. And that's how our brain processes a lot of everything in life actually. And when we go to sleep at night, it does the sorting and the filing. And with trauma, you'll find that the brain struggles to file away the event because there's no folder for the event. So I think it was definitely a traumatic event for me because I had no folder for this. It wasn't in my plan. It wasn't in my conception of my life. Like I didn't know how to deal with it. So I suppressed my emotions a lot and I actually didn't talk much about it. A lot of my friends didn't even really know until I had to share it somehow. And And it was bad because like just a few months later, I had a physical episode like of convulsive syncope. So it's like this like fainting with fits almost.
Okay.
And it happened like twice. And I think it was just my body completely shutting down, because the emotions of everything was just too much and too overwhelming. And you can shut it out at a cognitive level and at a heart level, but the body always keeps score. And the body knows. Yeah. So that was bad. Like the first one, it was bad. But by the time it happened again the second time, there was about a year plus between the two episodes. Between the two losses. And I by that point I thought that I was healthy and good enough in terms of where I was physically, mentally, emotionally, that it should be fine. But then it happened again, and it made me question if my body is trying to tell me something more. And that's when I started to really reassess my work. Because before that, I just never thought about it. I always thought that I would be in practice forever. I never thought that I'd leave. But it was really the second miscarriage that triggered
the reflection.
The reflection, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Carry on.
Yeah, so, I mean, from whatever you said, it sounds to be that during the first miscarriage, because you didn't really know how to handle it, in a sense, you sort of swept all your feelings under the rug.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're the kind of person who will just keep pushing and just keep going.
Yeah.
So you actually didn't give yourself any time to stop and think and actually embrace that emotion.
Yes.
And you just threw yourself back into work again.
Yes.
So that was how you handled the first loss.
Yes.
And because of that, a few months later, your body rejected it.
Yes.
And that's why you had to go through that episode, right?
Yeah.
And when you thought that you recovered, same thing happened again. So you didn't realize that it was maybe because you were under stress.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so that happened again. And that's when you realized, okay, maybe it's time for me to really stop, reflect, and understand why this is happening to me.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that it's actually very important for us to take some time off to acknowledge our feelings and to embrace it before we move on again.
Yes.
Right.
I think time off is underrated.
Yeah.
In this world where we are all about going, getting, and especially being in your mid-20s, early 30s, like it's very
fast-paced.
Fast-paced, right? And you don't feel like you're entitled to take a break from life, But sometimes there are, I think, certain situations, circumstances, or there's a timing in everyone's life where, I think it does one good to take a step back. And after my second miscarriage, I ended up taking almost 3 months off work just to recalibrate and think about some of these questions that I felt I never really thought about for myself. Like, what am I good at? What do I want to do with life? How do I want to spend the rest of my career? What do I really want to do for work? What do I really want to do for work? I never... I just sort of stumbled into law.
Yeah.
I graduated, and you just get a training contract and join a law firm like everyone else. You don't think about it, So in my early 30s, I felt like I was asking myself questions I probably should have asked myself in my mid-20s or my early 20s, actually. But I mean, I guess everyone's life has their own journeys.
Timeline.
That was my timeline, And so I think it's what you say is so true. It's really important to give yourself space to embrace the feelings. And then space from work or whatever commitments you might have to, sometimes that space is really necessary so that it's a step back so that you can take many more steps forward.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah. And when you actually had those episodes, right? Was there any post or like after effects from the fits that you actually had that affected work in any way?
Yes. So after the fits and I was hospitalized for a while, they ran a lot of tests on me to check if, everything was okay. They couldn't find anything. And I really thought, leaving the hospital after those episodes, I thought, oh, okay, this is just a break. Like I'll, enjoy a bit of time off and then I'll get back to life and I'll get back to it. I really thought it was just a physical thing, but it hit me so hard in the 20 plus days of hospitalization leave that I had after that I was really not the same. Like something had just snapped. I don't know what it was, like some change hormonally or something. Later on, I kind of self-diagnosed as being like burnout, I think it was just burnout. So I was not able to really process a lot of things mentally. Like if we were having a conversation and someone else, we're having like cross conversations, I can't deal with like cross conversations.
Too much noise.
Too much noise, or light, like too much light. I couldn't deal with it either. Crowded spaces. Yeah, like I couldn't deal with any of, like just going down to the coffee shop, it was like overwhelming for me. Like, it like just small things like crafting a text message was very hard for me as well. I remember having to draft an email to explain my absence to a tribunal for a hearing that I was actually right in the middle of, and I was not able to be there. And it was so hard for me to draft that. It's just a simple email saying why you can't, you're like not well in hospitalization leave, and it was hard for me to string that together. So it took me several months to, I think, really regain my old capacity again. I did return to work, but it was very slow. I think it really took me months to come back to my original capacity.
I mean, thank God that you were still able to recover from all those and get back to work. So actually through that several months, how did you feel when you actually couldn't perform at maximum capacity? Because I believe that all your life, right, you have always been running ahead, full speed ahead. And because of this, you were actually forced to really stop in your tracks. So as a person who has never done that before, how do you actually feel?
I think I had no choice but to really listen to my body. Because I really was not capable of, like, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And I recognized that limitation. So I would like wake up, I'd go to work. I would literally leave at 6, come home, have dinner and sleep. That's all I could manage to do. I managed to just do one thing per day. When before I would be able to go to work out after that, go for dinner with friends, come home, hang out with my husband. You squeeze multiple things in a day. I wasn't able to do that at all. And if I was to go out, meet a friend or do go to church, for example, that would be the one thing I do that day. And that would be it. And I kind of just accepted that my body really needed time to rest. And I just did that. It was hard, and I really wanted to get back to my old capacity. So I would keep trying to push the envelope a little bit by little bit. But it was hard.
So would you say that the reason why you were able to recover within those few months was because you actually have the desire to get better? And
I think a large part of it has to do with that I desired it, and I think this is something to understand maybe about. I wouldn't put myself out as an expert on depression or anything, but with a lot of people who do feel depressed and who go through seasons of depression, sometimes that desire is not there.
Correct.
And it's very hard when the desire is not there to get yourself out of that rut. You really need some kind of impetus to push you forward.
So for people who, let's say, they can't find that innate desire to want to get better, what do you think are some ways to actually help people?
I cannot answer these questions.
Okay. A bit difficult.
It's going outside the realm of my
my
expertise. I mean, I think you have to a psychiatrist who probably be a better person to ask.
I mean, I'm just asking because I do have some friends who happen to be in this circle, and they are always in it. And I do recognize that you need to have that desire. So everything starts from within.
I would say that it is really it's very hard. I mean, I struggle to approach this topic because I don't know if what I experienced really was full-scale depression, and I don't know if I really know what that feels like, you know, because at the end of the day, I still wanted to get up every day. I wanted to get better. And you know, at the end of the day, my will to live and to survive was still very strong.
Correct.
But I know that for a lot of people, it's not.
It might not be there.
It might not be that. Then in that case, you know, it's really hard, and I empathize a lot with those people. But it's hard for me to say anything because I don't know that I can really say I put myself in their shoes. Yeah.
So, I mean, other than that desire, right, were there other things that you do for yourself? For example, reading books or any other actions that you did to help in your recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I think after all that spate of events happened, I was very desirous of finding out how and why I got to that stage, because I think in a way I didn't see it coming at all. Like I didn't see it coming, and it just blindsided me, like this whole, you know, all these episodes. So I ended up listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot as a way to get different perspectives on these sorts of, you know, things like trauma, or like, you know, like processing life events,
trying to find out the reason.
Trying to sort of like cast light on the past for myself and see if there's anything there that I can sort of
leverage
on or hang my thoughts on or something, you know. So I did a lot of that, and it gave a lot of clarity to me over time, you know, just like reading and seeing different perspectives and what it could be, what it could not be. I think for me, it's always about like, okay, all this has happened, and I need to understand. And once I understand, I think it's easier for me to move forward. At least I make sense of what's happened, you know. I think we all desire that, and you don't always get that, but some measure of it is always helpful.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you for sharing about all those also. So maybe touching a little bit back onto being a lawyer.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you actually faced as one of the few female partners in a law firm? Were you ever mistreated by your clients? Or maybe not mistreated, but maybe some biased kind of treatments from them?
Yeah, I mean, no, I have to start off by saying that my firm and the department that I was in was a highly supportive environment. I don't think I was ever ostracized or you know, treated as a second-class citizen just because of my gender. In fact, I think a lot of opportunities were given to me precisely because I occupied a minority space in that department. So that part of it was not the issue. I think the challenge I often found was just being taken seriously.
By your clients.
I think clients, and maybe, you know, maybe it's particularly the kind of clients in the construction industry where it's also very male dominated, right? That industry. And I think a lot of them are very used to a certain image or idea of the lawyer. And that's like a middle-aged Chinese man, right? So for a lot of them to see like a young, like, you know, female and saying that this is going to be your lawyer is you know,
are you sure?
Yeah,
is she capable enough?
Correct. But I mean, for the clients that I did spend time working together with, like, I think we developed enough of a relationship of trust. And that was fine. It's often with the newer clients, and especially clients for whom the case isn't going so well, which a lot of times as a lawyer, you can't really control that because the facts are the facts. And sometimes the judges are who they are. They make decisions, you know, independently of whatever you might want to argue. So I think for those particular clients, when they're not very happy already, you know, it's sometimes you're an easy scapegoat, right? Like, oh, she's too young, right? So I struggled against that bias, I guess, that it was like just like an inherent bias, and that was quite challenging. But I mean,
How do you
Yeah.
overcome it?
I don't know that you mean personally, as in or in
Personally.
personally.
Yeah.
I just ignored it.
Mm.
Yeah, you just can't let it get to
Selective understanding. Selective hearing.
correct. I mean, it's not ever said to you openly, right?
Yeah, but you
it's
can feel it.
It's a
You can feel
perception,
it,
and
yeah.
it's something that exactly, like it's intangible. You feel it.
Mm.
I mean, I just ignored it. I just did my job. Yeah, I think that.
And that's great. That got you to where you are today also.
I guess, yeah. I mean, you. There's no point.
Okay.
Getting your panties in a bunch over this sort of thing.
Understand.
I and bias is a very, very difficult thing to tackle.
Mm.
You don't have much control over it, so yeah, no point whinging over that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. And now that you have a son,
Yeah.
and you're still working as
Yes.
the head of legal for APAC, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage your time?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's still quite busy, even though it's not as
Yeah.
high fast paced compared to the other job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's demanding for sure, but I have to say that I don't do it alone. So I get a lot of support, and I think I'm very, very lucky in that respect. So we have a great helper. My mom and my mother-in-law are always like on hand. My husband is hands-on as well. So, I have a lot of support. So I'm not doing it all alone. Yeah, I don't think it's possible for any one person to manage
Yeah.
all of that on their own. Everyone only has 24 hours a day, and there's only one body. Like, you only have one of you, so you can only be at any one place, at any one time. So I have a lot of help. But yeah, I think I also try to demarcate my day quite clearly. So unless I have calls running into the evening, by about 5 o'clock, I just close my laptop, and the next 3 hours is dedicated to just being with my son, because that's when he's back from school, and all the evening routines and everything, and I try to give that amount of time to him. And yeah, I mean, I think for me, having rhythms in the week helps a lot. So I've designated times where I eat with my family, and then my husband and I also commit to one date night per week at least.
Okay.
Yeah, we try.
That's
So
sweet.
yeah, so
I have to tell that.
yeah, yes, coming up soon, right? Your wedding. Yeah. So it just, these regular rhythms, they sort of help ensure that you're giving enough time to the different parts of your life. And so I will not hesitate to turn down a work call, actually, if it clashes with
Family
something
time.
personal. Yeah, I mean, that's if it comes outside of work hours, which it does sometimes, because of time zones and all of that. But yeah, generally they've been quite understanding about it.
You mean your workplace, right?
Yeah, my workplace.
Okay, but I think that is a tough one. It's quite difficult, because knowing Singaporeans,
Yeah.
or rather knowing Asians,
Yeah.
we are always working.
Yeah.
And I think we will feel rather uneasy if we were to actually turn down a work call.
Really? Okay.
I mean, it depends. I would say it depends on what kind of position you hold as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so
of
for example,
course.
if you're a trainee, or
Yeah,
if
of
you're
course.
just starting
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
then it's going to be very hard.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
So I think when you're just starting out, it's very hard to say no,
Correct.
right? And saying no could send, I don't know, the wrong
maybe I
message.
could-
Or
yeah.
but I think was it millennials or Gen Zers now? What are we calling them now? Millennials or Gen Z?
I think
Those who are just starting out at work.
I think the new people.
The new
young
people. The new people. I feel like they have less qualms saying no these days.
Yes.
It's kind of like
Right.
my generation,
Yeah, I think it's
our
our
generation,
generation,
that we're
correct.
like, oh, we feel opaise.
Correct,
We're not going to
correct.
say, how could you reject, turn down a work call, But I feel like nowadays people are like more
It's like,
bold about
Yeah.
saying, no, I've got
I've got my own
a
things to
personal
do.
commitment.
Yeah.
Like I've got my Pilates or whatever. I can't do this. And then I think bosses from our generation are like, are you
Not used to
kidding
it.
me? Yeah. So, but yeah, I think when you're younger, try as much as you can to make yourself available, right? Because you're not always going to be in that position. As you grow and win seniority, and that's how you earn your stripes, right?
Yeah.
That's how you build yourself up.
Yes.
And anyway, as a young person, you do need that level of exposure as well. You do need those hours because you have no experience, so you make up for it with your exposure. But as you grow in seniority, then you earn more and more the right, I guess, to say no and to prioritize other things. And that's also the stage of life that you actually have other things to prioritize. Right? When you're 25, what's there? Your boyfriend and you, right?
And parents.
Your parents. I'm not belittling the life outside of work. It's just that it's not as demanding because you're at a stage in life where everyone understands that you're building your career.
Correct.
Unless you have a child at that age who doesn't understand. So it's different when you have children. They don't understand these things, right? And they're demanding.
Correct.
So yeah.
And the only thing is that as you are growing older, so are your kids.
That's right.
Yeah. So time doesn't really wait for anybody. If you spend this amount of time at work, this is the number of years that you have missed for your kids' childhood as well.
Yeah,
that's also the period of time where they form their core memory. Yeah. So actually that is a very sensitive, a very critical period that you actually need to be there.
Yeah.
So totally understand where you're coming from. Okay, and after all these things that you have been through, right? How are you better managing your stress now? Or like how are you better coping these days?
Yeah, I think, like you said earlier about giving space for emotions, right? Like your feelings. And I think that sticks with me till today. So, life is not always going to be like easy and there will be stresses and there will be uncomfortable things and there will be difficult things. I think what I do differently now probably is acknowledge. Like I take a moment to say, okay, this is hard. It's like this is a really tough. Like I'm feeling this, in this situation. Like I'm not liking it, So giving myself that space to acknowledge and to just give space for the emotion to exist, as opposed to white knuckling my way through, which I used to do.
How long would that be?
It doesn't have to be very long, actually. Sometimes it's just a moment. A moment in the day just to say, this is tough, or or maybe it's multiple moments over the course of the week saying like, this is a really hard week, actually. It's not been easy. I'm not feeling comfortable because of this and that situation with this and that person, and I don't like it. And I mean, like, just acknowledging that to yourself. And then, I mean, for me, because I am a Christian, it's also just sort of processing that through prayer. And it helps me a lot, I think.
Okay. So let me clarify. So before this, you used to be, whenever you are faced with something that's difficult, you used to tell yourself, I can do it. I think this is okay. If I try, I'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still tell myself that. It's just that previously, I would ignore all the negative emotions that came along with that.
Okay.
So like I would ignore the irritation. I would ignore the disappointment.
Yeah.
I would ignore the grief. Actually, I realized that a lot of times in life, at least for me, there are small disappointments and small griefs that you feel because either certain things don't turn out the way that you want them to, or certain people let you down or something, and I would just ignore that, and I wouldn't. It would just be an uncomfortable emotion.
Yeah.
But
you don't care about it.
I would not give it any time of day.
Yes, correct.
I just carry on with what needs to be done because the tasks at hand are
More
laid out
important,
before you.
right,
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
too much of anything is never good.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good that we remain positive and we remain resilient in
Yeah.
the face of challenges. But it's also good to understand that we have, as humans, we do have these kind of negative emotions.
Yeah.
It's only by acknowledging it and say that, okay, yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite disappointed by this result.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
I will move on from here. I'll
Yeah.
pick myself up and I will do even better.
Yeah.
Instead of just, oh, okay, never mind, let's go. Let's move
Yeah,
on.
exactly. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And for me, it's also like praying about like, God, give me a new perspective about this. Like, help me frame my perspective. Because we always approach things with our perspective, which
Correct.
is one, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, when you deal with people, situations, it's about changing your perspective also, or also like trying to see things from another person's point of view. So maybe what you once considered hurtful to you or disappointing to you, that emotion can be reframed by a changed perspective. So that helps, just seeing different truths in the same, that all coexist actually in the same situation or in the same space. Yeah.
Okay. So before we go, do you have any piece of advice that you would like to give anyone out there who might be facing the same situation as you?
Same situation.
Or used to face the same situation as you?
You mean like just sort of like being young?
Just
building their
full speed
career.
on, that kind.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say pursue everything you want to pursue, but listen to your body and listen to your intuition actually. Yeah. And if it's telling you to slow down, then just do it because you'll be the better for it. Yeah. And if it's telling you to soften, then just release your grip over whatever it is that you've got your grip on. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wow, thank you. That was quite a powerful ending.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you for having me.
No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Chin Up and Rise. We have also collated the key pointers of today's episodes. All you can do is actually click the link down below to have access to all this. And you can also follow us on the social media handles down below for more content and update. Before you go, do remember to give us a like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.